and metadata in Lightroom. This meeting is being recorded. All right, got it. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about metadata in Lightroom. I'm a huge Lightroom user. I've been using Lightroom since 2008. So I was a very early adopter of it. And learned quite a few things along the way, as well as I've taught numerous Lightroom classes across a variety of things. And I don't think people, and why I talked to Hylos about, what I might do is I don't think people utilize the metadata aspects of Lightroom as much as they could, not only to put the metadata in, but also on how to use it to kind of sort and find your photos and be able to see what's going on with your photos as well. So let me share my screen here. And let's hope that all of that works. Seems to be fine. Let's see if that's working. Oh, that is working. Is everybody seeing that? Okay.
Yes, we are.
Okay, we good. All right. All right. So I have the chat up here on the left-hand side, and I'm just hoping that it's not hiding any of my information. For me, it won't be hiding it for you, but I should be fine. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the metadata aspects of Lightroom. Okay. Is it going to, yeah, there it goes. All right, so questions are encouraged via chat, and I'll take some live questions at the end. If you have something really important as I'm going over something, please feel free to jump in, but I might ask you to defer that, write it down, and hold it till the end as well, so we don't get off track and I get to get through everything. This presentation and information contained in it is intellectual property and protected by copyright. You attendees of the seminar may use it for any of your personal use, but you may not share the presentation or any parts of it without permission from myself. So just giving you that information. Obviously, you can look up any of this Lightroom information anywhere. As well. So there's lots of great resources for Lightroom out there. If you haven't looked for it, there's tons of great resources. All right, so what is metadata? So, and there's a lot of different, I'm gonna close that. All right, hold on. I've got to move some stuff around on my screen so I can see my info here. Technical metadata, that's the information that's automatically generated by the camera. It could include your camera details and settings, aperture, shutter speeds, even the model and serial number of your camera, along with the date and time created. And when I say time created, be sure to, if you haven't done this already, be sure to go into your camera settings and update the daylight saving times data. Yes, you are okay to record. That is perfectly fine. So be sure to update your time on your camera, because I know a lot of times we forget to do that when the time changes. And I'm going to be honest, I totally forgot to do that myself, and I'm going to go and do it after this meeting. And also, some cameras will record GPS, or for some cameras, you can also get a GPS device to add on to your camera that will record and embed the GPS information into your images if you want that. Okay. And then there's descriptive metadata. And this is the metadata that you can add manually through software. It includes changing the file name, because there always is an embedded or automatic file name. You can add keywords, captions, titles, comments, descriptions, and all of these things make your images searchable, not just online, but also in your own Lightroom. You can search for stuff if you know what the keyword is. And then there's administrative metadata, which you also add manually. And this would be your contact information and your copyright information in any usage or licensing rights. You can also even include if you have a model or property release in that metadata. Why is metadata important? It's important because it's stored in your image file and it stays with the image. It makes the image findable and searchable in your catalog and online. And it also embeds contact and copyright information into that image. However, there are some online sites that strip all metadata from images and some do not. But, you know, things like Facebook, it strips all of the metadata out of your image. So whatever you've embedded in there, it's gone once you upload it to something like Facebook. And there's some other sites that do it as well, strip it out. But there's other sites that include absolutely everything that you've included in your metadata. What are those metadata formats? One is EXIF, and that's the technical metadata. That's all your camera settings. And that EXIF means exchangeable image file. That includes everything that comes from your camera. F-stop, shutter speed, and again, the type of camera you're using, the lens you use, the f-stop, all those different types of things are immediately embedded into that digital file when you create it. Now, obviously, if you're scanning, none of that information, if you're scanning, you know, older film files, none of that will be embedded. So there is no EXIF data from that. It may include the scanner information, but you will have none of the camera information from a film file. And then there's the IPTC data, and that's the data that you can change and update. That's what the keywords and the contact and the copyright and the captions is called. And IPTC stands for International Press Telecommunications Council. It's an industry standard for the descriptions and copyright information. And then there's also an XMP metadata platform, and that generally includes if you've done any developments to raw files, that can get embedded into the file, or it can also become a sidecar file, which is what can, depending on the type of file it is, it might be embedded in it, tends to be embedded in JPEGs and DNGs and TIFF files. Or PSD files, but it becomes a sidecar file if you're photographing, if you're using raw files. Okay. All right, what the camera adds, the EXIF file. And I already mentioned that, but it really adds all of those types of things in there. There's not much you can do to change that. There are a couple little tricks to strip that out. But it really does include all of your exposures and file types and sizes and serial numbers, even the lens and the focal length, it will include into your file. And I use this when I'm trying to find out, you know, how did I shoot that? When did I shoot it? Well, what was my shutter speed, or what lens did I use? So it includes all of that. And I find that extremely valuable in going back and reviewing images. And when I was teaching, it was super helpful to look at student files and really be able to dissect or troubleshoot where something went wrong in the photo. It was much easier to figure out that way. And some of you will probably remember, you know, those of you who learned on film, if any of you did, where we had to write down what the shutter speed was and what the f-stop was. And invariably, you would mix something up somewhere and the information wouldn't be correct. And it would be really hard to figure out where you went wrong or where you went right if you were trying to repeat that effect. And then what can you add? IPTC, file names, keywords, titles, captions, contact information, copyright and licensing, and also include whether it's if there's a model or property release for it. Okay. Software, the XMP file that was created by Adobe, it allows metadata to be stored within the image. And as I was mentioning, it gets embedded in JPEGs, TIFFs, PSDs, and some raw files, but not all. And then the sidecar is for a raw, but it does get embedded in a DNG for your development settings. And I like that sometimes, If you want to share with someone, your raw file and include the development settings that you've done with that raw file, if you export it as a DNG file out of Lightroom, it will embed your development settings in the DNG. And then when someone else goes to look at it, they will have those, and those development settings will show up either in Lightroom or in Adobe Camera Raw if they're opening the DNG that way. So it's helpful. They can see what you did and with DNG, but it will not embed it in the raw file. All right, so there's a couple little bit of catalog setting types of things to do in Lightroom. So if you go into catalog settings with your metadata, it's really nice to kind of set up some of these things ahead of time. So it will help you in the future. And I just check a few things off here in editing. I offer suggestions from recently entered values, and that could be for keywords. I want to include the development settings in metadata inside JPEGs, TIFFs, PNGs, and then I want to automatically write any changes into that XMP file. Make sure those are checked, and then write data or time changes into proprietary raw files. And you can, if your time or your date was wrong on your camera, you can go in and change that in Lightroom. I'm not going to go over exactly how to do that. There's plenty of directions online for it, but be very careful if you do that, because you can't undo it. You can change it again, but you can't roll it back. There is not an undo for changing that date and time. Okay. All right. So here is, and I'm going to pull up an actual Lightroom. I'm going to switch out of this in a second, but essentially this is the library setting. And I know the type is super tiny right now, but I'm going to switch over to Lightroom, and I've actually enlarged the text today. But in all of those, you can search over on the right-hand side of Lightroom panel is where you would be working with the keywords, and any of the metadata would be over on this side. You can also search some of the things in the attributes and the metadata at the top of the screen as well. I tend to not go up here very often. I tend to use the side much more than searching at the top. It's just the way that I work with it. All right. So camera settings, what can you find in the EXIF info? You can find the size of the image. Okay. You can find the exposure. So this is the image that's highlighted right here. And this was shot at 8 seconds at f10 at an ISO of 100, 24 millimeter focal length on a 24-105 lens. It was shot on November 9th, 2019 at 7:02 p.m. And I had remembered to change the time to the location I was in Paris. So that's the other thing. If you travel and you don't change it, you won't be on local time. You'll be on whatever your home time is. And this was shot with a Canon EOS R camera. So very easy. You can find all of those things. Oh, and this file is also, this one's a TIFF file. So that is not the raw file. I bring my TIFF files back into Lightroom. So they are there. And the file size right now, because it's a TIFF file, it's 612 megabytes. So it's kind of big. Okay. All right. So I'm going to switch over. Let me get out of this. Okay. And go to Lightroom, which is in the background. All right. Is that easier to see?
Yeah.
Over here on this side?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, I figured. Because I know the other one is super tiny. Let me make that just a little bit bigger. All right. So we can see. So, all right. I'm going to pick an image. Let's go with that one since that is a raw file. Let me make those a little bit bigger. So that's my selected image. And we can see all the things I can find that was embedded into this image. ISO 400, 28 millimeter, f11, 400th of a second. So, and let me scroll down here. Okay. So in the metadata, in the little box next to it, I always check EXIF and IPTC. You have options here to default and plugins and just one or the other, but I like to have all of them, and I just have to scroll down to kind of look at some of those things. So you can see what the original dimensions were and now what the cropped dimension is. And this one was shot in 2015 on May 9th, okay, around lunchtime, okay, around noon. And this was shot on a 5D Mark III, okay, and even my serial number here, which I don't have anymore. All right, so the thing, if you haven't ever done this before, these little arrows next to the EXIF data are super helpful, okay? So wait, hold on a minute while another time option. Okay. Yeah, Zulu time could work. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I'm in. There is. I have a specific Lightroom collection that I've set up for the metadata class. So I just want to make sure I get back to that. All right. So I can see if I click on one of those arrows. Okay. What that little arrow did is it brought up all the images that are at ISO 400. My hard drive's taking a minute here to pull all of them up. Let's go back to that one. Uh-oh, hold on. One of the things I discovered, I'm happy to take some questions at the moment. One of the things I discovered is Zoom and Lightroom are a bit of a challenge together. Lightroom wants to go super slow when I'm using Lightroom. So it does get to be a bit of a challenge. Oh, I see what it's doing. It's looking for every image with an ISO of 400 in all my photographs. There we go. It's starting to pull them up. Okay. So everything that's in here that was shot at an ISO of 400, it's pulling up. Okay. Probably not the best thing for me to choose. Okay. Let's go back. There we are. We'll just go back there. All right. So any of those arrows on your EXIF file, if you're trying to find something, and this could be a way if you have a noisy image and you're trying to find all the images, you know, at an ISO of 6,000 or something, and you want to run noise reduction on it, you could get one and you could just click on that and it would bring up all the images that did that. So let me see what this one is. Oh, this one was at 16,000. Okay. And I'm pretty stunned about how clean that is for being an ISO of 16,000. That really is, it's a bit noisy, but it's not really so bad. So it turned out fairly well. It was really dark out there on that street. So let's go back to there. All right. So with that, now I'm going to scroll up a little bit here. And let me see what's going on. Any questions with that? All quiet on the home front? All right, so hold on. Going back to the presentation. All right, so IPTC metadata, that is the information that you can add into it, into an image, which will be keywords and copyright and captions and all of those types of things. So one of the things that I always put in my images is my contact information and my copyright. And even in the very beginning, if I don't put in a whole lot of keywords, I at least put in some general keywords. So it kind of gets me close where, you know, is it Atlanta? Is it Rome, Georgia? Is it a landscape? Is it architecture? Just some like really basic things that I can globally put in as I add the images. So that's at least a basic start, but I highly recommend that you get, you know, much more comfortable and maybe diligent about adding more keywords in to help you find your images. In one of the things, and yes, you can use this if you want, the statement, and I put that in my copyright information, all rights reserved, contact the photographer for usage, reproduction rights and fees, fee charged for all usage and must have written permission and pay fee. So I include that in every image in my copyright information. So if someone's using my image without my permission and they say, well, I didn't know, I'm like, well, it's embedded in the image. I can't imagine you didn't know. So, all right. So metadata preset. I don't know how many of you may have done this, but it's really super easy. And I'm going to, I think my next thing is a demo on that. It is, so let me escape out here. Okay. Put that in the background for a moment. All right. So metadata presets are super easy to do. And I usually, in Lightroom or Photoshop, there's at least 3 ways to do everything. So I'm going to show you one way. If you know another way, it works just fine. So again, over here on the right-hand panel, under metadata, there's a little thing that says preset. If you click in that window, you can click edit presets. And this means that you can also create a new preset. So obviously that's not super clear, but I'm going to click edit presets and it's going to bring up this new window. All right, so mine's already populated because of the image I selected, and I don't fill in everything. So the first 3, I really don't fill in, although the IPTC content, if you had a category or description or headlines you wanted to add, you could definitely fill that in. Under the copyright information, I put in the little copyright symbol and my name. And then I check the next box, which says copyrighted. This is the box where I put in that text I just read to you. I included there on rights usage terms. And then I also have a page on my website. And if you don't have a page on your website, it's not a big deal. But I also have a page on my website that explains copyright. And then under the creator, I put in my contact information. I'm going to give you a caveat here because remember, this is embedded in the image and can be extracted from the image. If your address is your home street address, just leave the street blank. Okay, mine's a PO box, perfectly fine with that, but I would put in your name, your city, your state, your zip code, a phone number. And some people don't want to put their phone number in here. I haven't had any random phone calls. And my thought is if somebody wants to contact me because they want to buy this image or use this image or find out more, I want them to be able to reach me. And then I also have a specific email address that's just embedded in my images. Okay. And then further down, this one is picking up keywords because it was the image that it pulled in all the metadata from the image I had highlighted. I wouldn't put those keywords in a preset. I would put in my name. If you have a business name and want to put it in. And I usually put in something like professional photographer. You don't have to do all of this, but remember, this is going to be a generic preset that you want to apply to everything. The keywords are going to be more specific to a specific group of images. This is just my general preset. So I've done all of that. And then I'm going to go, which again, Lightroom does some weird things. This should be at the bottom, not at the top. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to say save current setting as new preset, Judy 2022 copyright. And I'm going to create it. And then I'm done. Okay. So I can choose. Okay, let me make these a little smaller so you can see I can select a bunch. So I could select one image and go over here. And now that is in my preset list. So I can just click it, which will now apply all that information to that image. Or I can select a whole group of images and apply to all selected. So once you've created it, it's really super easy to apply in a lot of places. Okay. Questions, comments? Make sense? Any of you do that now?
Hey, Judy, one thing that we covered within our club is we kind of have close to the same standards as the shootout, to where the longest edge has to be 2500 JPEG, RGB, that sort of stuff. And that's one of the job aids we have in the club, is how to create a preset in Lightroom just when we want to export our images for competition.
Yep. And Lightroom is fantastic for presets. I have import presets, development presets, copyright presets. I have presets for so many, printing presets. So that is one of the things that I love about it, is you can create a preset in every one of the sections, which really makes, you know, in the beginning, it feels slow by doing that, but it really does speed up the process as you start to do more and more. And that's fantastic. All right, so that was that one. There we go. All right, in the same place, you can add captions and titles, and these will get picked up in other programs that might utilize the metadata. If you post, if you sync any of your Lightroom collections with Lightroom Online, or I don't know if anybody has used Adobe Portfolio to create a website, which both of those are fantastic and they tie together. And other websites as well, they'll pull in your caption information, which, you know, if you take the time to do that, it just stays very standardized and kind of moves forward with that image, which is super helpful. Okay. Captions and titles. I'm gonna, you know, it's pretty much the same thing. Let me escape that. Sorry. And let me see, do I have one of those? There we go. All right, I do. Fantastic. All right, so this image, make that bigger. Okay. Oops, kind of got a little too big there. So this one, in the caption, I called it, and this will travel with this photo, and wherever I upload that photo will include the caption. And in the caption, oh, I know what I did with this one. I used to have a program that I could upload to Instagram straight from Lightroom, and they kind of messed that up. But if I put the caption in, it would put the caption in when I uploaded it to Instagram, and anything that I added the hashtag to, it would add a hashtag to it as well. So that was like really super handy. But that program no longer syncs with Lightroom, and I'm really unhappy I can't upload that way anymore, because it made it super easy to upload straight from my computer to Instagram. Okay, but you know, you can put a caption in. I could put a title in here. So Lisbon, Portugal. I'm just going to do, Pastéis de Bellum. Okay. So that makes it really easy. And then it will just continue to follow and stay with that image. All right, and then keywords. So keywords are, of all those things I've been doing, keywords are pretty easy. And you want to think of the keywords that work the best for a specific image. And as I was saying before, it's like if I imported a whole bunch of image, and let's say the ones that you're seeing right now are all from Portugal, that I would, put some standardized keywords in there that were Lisbon and Portugal and maybe travel and things like that. And then I would go in individually and select another group of images that I could either apply keywords to one specific image or to a whole group of images. So what you want to do when choosing your keywords is think about words that best identify or describe the photo, and think about if you were, searching for something online, what words would you use to find it? And you can use those same words in your keywords. Now, sometimes don't feel overwhelmed or you have to put every single keyword known to man in there. You don't have to do that. You can put in just things that are maybe more obvious or more specific in how somebody might search something. And I haven't delved into this just yet, but it's on my list. There are some artificial intelligence programs that will look at an image and pick out specific keywords for it as well, and automatically add the keywords to those images. So that's another level that you can kind of work toward if you really want to get very robust with your keywording of your images. So you can add to individual images, groups of images, and you can also use the paint can, which I find a little annoying in Lightroom, but it does allow you to kind of spray paint keywords onto some images. You can also create presets for some of the keywords that you might use regularly, and that will help you add keywords to a bunch of images. And you can also group keywords into subsets. So let me go back. Okay. Oh, why are you making my life miserable? There we go. All right, so let me make less images here. All right, so I'm going to scroll up. Okay, so make that one bigger so you can see. So this image has a bunch of keywords already in it. And if I wanted to add a new keyword, to me, this is the easiest place to add it if I don't have that keyword already in it. So I could do, and I do have a keyword in my list for street photography because I didn't have that as a keyword in there, but I did have architecture, and I did actually even embed my camera, the type of camera I used in there, my name, landmark, landscape, Lisbon. And if you see where it has the little arrow, it's in a group where it says Lisbon, and then there's a arrow. Let me do this one. This makes more sense. Okay. So that means Portugal is in a group called Europe. So it kind of, it's a way to kind of group keywords so you don't have a list of like thousands of them to hunt down. All right. So keyword set. Okay. All right. You can create keyword sets. So while I have this one highlighted, I could even click, if you have typical keywords you're going to use, if I have, and I have a couple different keyword sets. So here in travel, I can click on any of those that I want to add to that image or to a group of images that I've selected. So that's one way to add some that you might be typical or readily used keywords that that you're going to use all the time. Okay. And then this keyword list, which is below it. And I like that there's arrows that I can close things up. So let me close that up. Keyword list This is all of the keywords that I have in my list. And I'm going to scroll through them and kind of quickly. Oh, here, so you can see this. See, I have Europe. So this is a group, and I have different names of places from Amboise and the Arno and Assisi, Cortona and Chenonceau and France and Italy. So I could, let me see if it's in there. Portugal. See this one, it's checked. And that tells me that this already has Portugal as a keyword. And then over here on the right, it shows me I have 996 images that have Portugal as the keyword. I'm going to do something that's not quite as many images. Let's go. What do I got here? Oh, 7,000 images. We don't want to do that. Okay. I'm trying to get a few that I don't have a whole bunch coming up here. So let's try this one. See what happens here. I clicked on the little arrow next to Luxembourg Garden. And it's now going to pull up. It's going to take it a second. That's why I was afraid of. All right. So it's now going to pull up all of the images that I have the keyword Luxembourg Garden on. So if I'm just looking for that and I know it's keyworded, it's really super easy to go into just my keywords, click on that, or roll over the little line and the arrow pops up, and then there's all of the images. There's only 7 of them. And I know I have more than that. I just didn't keyword them well. That has Luxembourg Garden as a keyword. So it makes it easy if you're trying to find something, you're like, oh, I know I keyworded that and I can find it. So that makes it really helpful for you to find images just by doing that. And it saves you a whole lot of time if you do this in the beginning, as opposed to, you know, like going, oh no, I have to sort through all my images because I don't know how to find that one. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. All right. All right. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. So this is just a summary of the importance of keyword metadata. So I've kind of like finished up there with you guys. Importance, the formats are EXIF and IPTC and XMP. You can include your contact information in your metadata, copyright information. You can create a preset. You can add captions and titles. You can add keywords. And the importance is that it makes it that you're able to find you are able to find your images in your own collection, but also anything you've posted online, someone else may be able to find it because you've added that information into it. And then your contact and copyright, you've added that information into it so someone can find the creator or the owner of those images. So I've left a few little moments here for some question and answer. If anybody has anything they want to add or ask.
Sure, I've got one.
Sure.
Okay, so you've got your preset set up and you import your images into Lightroom, and that includes your copyright information.
Yes.
And so now you are entering a competition where anonymity is required. Your copyright data identifying marks need to be removed from the photo from the metadata. A quick and easy scripted way to do that would be a perfect recipe for, say, April 30th.
Sorry, say that last part again.
That would be a perfect script for maybe, say, April 30th.
Ah, okay. Because I mean, one of the things that I do is like, it's just habit for me. When I enter it, all my EXIF data comes in. Some of you may have even entered your copyright information, depending on what camera you're using. You've entered your name and your copyright information actually in your camera, which then embeds it in the EXIF data and not just the IPTC data, which you add the stuff into. So the way to do that is I'm going to go over here. So let's say pick an image so I don't move around too much. So this one, All right, hold on. Got too many things going on. When I export it, okay, let me pick a spot. All right, so I just created a folder for that. All right. And what I would do then is I'm not, depending on if I already named it, my own special name, I may need to change the name. So I can do this right here. I can rename this file when I export it. And let's just say, all right. So I want to name it sequence. Actually, I want to name it camera club competition. Okay. And you might have a name or a number or something you need to put in there. I'm just putting my initials in, but you probably wouldn't do that. And then a sequence number. So when it exports it, it's going to rename this image or this group of images. It's going to strip out my name on it, and it's going to put the name in that I want it to be. And then this is where you want to resize it, because you probably have, because you guys were saying there's a specific size you need, right? Okay, so I put the size in there. Do they have a quality that they're asking for when you do that?
No,
No,
at this
okay.
point, it's just a pixel size.
Oh, it's just a pixel size, so you can only, oh, it's just a pixel size. Got it. I might want to add a little screen sharpening in there. Okay. And then include, so here in your metadata, okay. It's not letting me strip that out. Copyright only. So it's only letting me, so I thought there was a place where there was a none, and I'm not seeing that. I feel like it's changed, but I feel like there was a place to all except camera, copyright. This is weird. So I felt like there was a place where you could strip out all of the metadata from this.
what happens if you change to check copyright only?
Well, then your name would be in it, but you could, so I could do that. So I'm going to click done for a minute. Okay. All right. And then I'm just going to, here's a workaround. I'm going to guess. Okay. I'm going to go to this one, this image. Oh, come on. And I'm going to change. Oh, hold on. Being difficult. Okay. I don't have any copyright information in this specific image. So there's always a none. Okay. So I got nothing in it. So when I go there, and that was a good suggestion. Thank you. When I do copyright only, it should, so test it. It should strip out all of the information. So
Yeah, it has already removed person info checked off.
remove person info. Well, remove location info, and that would be things like your GPS, and if you had any model releases and names and stuff in there. And then I would export. And there went the photo. Okay. But I would double check that just to be sure that it was doing that for you, especially for the competition. And it might be at the camera club competition that you don't add any of this stuff when you import it into Lightroom before you process. So you don't have to, you don't have to take it out again. Okay. And you can always add this, you can always add your keywords and your copyright information to your images when you take them back home, and they're yours now. So you can always add that back in later. So that might be the thing, is don't add any of this information when you're entering the competition. Make sense? Yeah.
Sounds like an easy way.
Yeah, so don't, you know, especially for that competition, don't add the stuff in, don't add your copyright, and then you just do it, you just solve it later when you want to add the stuff in on your own.
So would there be any value then in making a preset that is blank?
Yeah, if you want to strip out any of that copyright information, and that's what this one is. It's a blank, whoops, sorry. It's a none, so it's not adding anything into it. Okay, but this was in my camera when I shot it. So there's my name in it. Okay. Oh, and my contact information is in there. Let me see what's the other one. Yeah, I would have to, yeah, and you might create one that has absolutely no information in it. So hopefully it'll strip it out of there. Okay. But you might have to, oh, that's truly annoying because you can't get, you know, normally I don't want to get rid of it, but yeah, that does create a bit of a problem if you're trying to enter something with no information on it. I can see how that could be a challenge.
That always becomes a challenge trying to defeat the technology that's helping us.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? And you just say like, you all cannot look at the metadata on this. So you just like, you have to close that. You can only look at the file name because I'm sure they're probably sorting them through Lightroom. Is that what they're doing?
So we will have 5 judges. Each judge will get to judge one of the 5 topics that we have for the event. And we will ask them not to look at the metadata, but we're also asking all of the participants to not include metadata. So somewhere between the 2 of those, hopefully we'll be successful.
Yeah, but you know, on my cameras, I normally go in and even embedded in my camera, I put my name and my copyright information in my camera. So that just automatically drops it into the image. And sometimes that's harder to strip out than the things that you've personally added into it.
Right. And there's some other non-Lightroom programs that you can use to strip that out, but that starts becoming complicated.
Yeah, and that's just going to add another layer of complication to the whole day that you probably do not need.
At this point, it's an awareness thing.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So hold on. Scrolling down. That wasn't it. There we are. Lightroom class. There we go. Back to those images. They've been loaded up. All right. So that's all I have on metadata. I did prepare something on masking in development setting. Does anybody want to go over that information, or do you just want to ask me questions about development in Lightroom and I can show some examples on how to do some things? You tell me what would work.
Information on masking might be interesting to, I know Lightroom has come in with a new masking techniques on there that are fantastic. So
okay, so let me just do that. I'm gonna like trash the presentation. So I'm gonna skip through that. So let me just close that up and I'm gonna pick an image and we're gonna do a little bit of masking. And I have my handy. So one of the things that I like is a drawing tablet. And I don't know if many of you use that. Okay. But I use a drawing tablet a lot. So let me pick an image that might be really fun to do here. Sorry. Let's go with that one. Oops, there we go. All right. So I'm going to move over to develop with this image and I'm going to apologize ahead of time because remember I said Lightroom can be slow with Zoom. So it may cause us a teeny challenge here, but I'm going to do my best to see what we have. All right, so this is the latest version of Lightroom and they've changed, for those of you who have been using it, if you haven't upgraded recently, they've changed these selective tools up here in the upper right-hand corner of the of the development panel. And this is develop. And here's my histogram. So it's telling me that this image was ISO 400, 58 millimeter lens, f9 at a 500th of a second. And I'm going to close up that histogram so it's kind of not in our way. And then right up here on the top, we have all of our selective adjustment tools. They bunched all of the masks under this one tool. That's this little circle with some dots around it. And I can't make it really any bigger. And every time I try to zoom on my computer, things go haywire. So if I click on that, it brings up a new palette to add a mask. And I can select the subject, which it's really pretty darn good here, or the sky. And then I can use the brush or a linear gradient or a radial gradient, and I can select by color range or luminance or depth. So I'm just going to try select sky right now. So it's thinking. Okay. All right. I'm going to move this out of the way so you can see. Can you see the red on there?
Yes.
And it selected pretty well. It did pick, I can see it picked a little bit of the roof up here, but it did a pretty nice job of selecting this, even along this kind of like ruffly tree edge. So now, and now it creates this mask palette, and it says sky and mask 1, and you can rename these if you want. But I'm just going to do that. And now I can use all of these options or selective options to change the color just on the sky area. So I'm just doing, or change whatever I want. So I can make it bluer if I want. I can make it darker. I'm just like going a little extreme so you can see how it's happening. And it did affect a little bit of that area. Okay. So to get the red back, the overlay, I'm pressing the O key, the letter O, and it's showing my mask, or it's kind of taking the masking away. It's still there, but it's at least showing me where it is. So if I want to make a little adjustment to this mask, I'm going to go over to my mask palette. I'm going to click subtract, and I'm going to choose brush. So now when I come up here, you can see my brush tool. You can also press K for brush tool. Is it going to let me make this smaller? It's not behaving nicely. So let's make my brush a little smaller. And the minus, please. Flow. Oh, that's my problem. Let's make this. Okay. My flow was down. I was doing something else. There we go. So I can erase, and I'm going to take it over here. Can you? So I'm erasing where my mask is. Okay. So if it went over an area, even though it selected most of the sky, it went a little bit into other areas. So I want to erase it. So I want to be a little careful here. I'm going to let it bleed over a little bit because I'm not going to make it as dark. Did you guys get the idea on that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. So let me turn that off. So that's, that's a little overdone. So let's pull that back up. So I would make it maybe a little darker, and I wouldn't go that saturated on the blue, but I just want to enhance it a little bit. Okay. So that kind of adjusted my sky. And now I want to lighten this area because that's a little too dark over here. So I'm going to create a new mask. Okay. And this time I'm just going to use the brush. I don't want to select the subject because it's going to be too much. So I'm just going to pick the brush. Okay. And I'm going to make it lighter. It's not going to be right, but I can come back and adjust. Okay. All right, so somebody tell me what this old-fashioned photo technique would be called.
Dodging.
Yes, thank you. You win the prize. I owe you a beer. Okay. Okay. It's a little much though, right? All right, so I'm going to rename this Dodge. Okay. Oh, see, there's my challenge. Chateau. All right, so that was way too much. So I'm just going to bring that down. I made it so bright so I could see what it was doing and not have to deal with the red overlay to see where it was going. And that's what I do sometimes. I either make it really bright or really dark. All right, and that was pretty nice. And over here on my mask, if I roll over the mask, there's a little eye, so I can turn it on and off to see what it actually did. Does that look okay? I think maybe I went a little too far. Let me bring that down just a little bit more. You don't want it to be that much. But it really lightened up that shadow side very nicely. Okay, and that was my sky. Okay. So if you only have one or two masks, it's probably not as important to name them. But if you start to add a bunch, and this is a great way to selectively adjust your images, it's a great idea to start naming them because you start to forget what that mask was. So I used the select sky for that one. And then I used just the brush tool for that one. Let me find another image that would be a good option here.
So while you are on this image, does Lightroom allow you to have different settings for the erase and for the add brushes?
Yes. Okay. All right. So wait. Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah. So let me go in here. Oh, sorry. Darn. Create a new mask, brush. You can have an A and a B for the brush. So you can actually create a kind of a preset for the size and the flow and the density and the feather on it. So let me just paint on something. Let's just paint on that. Okay. So that was that one. And then I could set this where I had a much lower one and go to the B brush. Okay. It's a little hard to tell, but that one was a much more robust painting. And this is a little bit softer. It's not as dense. And then when I go to erase, I can also set the erase. I can set the flow and the feather and the size of the brush as well. So yeah, it will keep those for you. Okay.
So the challenge in a lot of this masking is catching the edge of the object correctly.
Yeah.
What is a good solution for trying to resolve that edge on your selected shrubbery there?
So what you learned in kindergarten about not painting outside of the lines is no longer valid. Okay. Because now I can go in because I did paint outside the line on that one. Let me see if I can get a little closer here. Yeah, there we go. So that's another thing, like zoom in a little bit and then I can, and I always have, I need a little bit more feather on my brush. And remember, I'm using a drawing tablet. Okay. if you're not using a drawing tablet and you're trying to do this, it's like trying to draw with a brick in your hand. And getting used to using a drawing tablet is a bit of a challenge. Hello. All right. My touch on, off. Oh, my touch was on. That's why it did something weird. Okay. So I've kind of, I painted over it. I came back and I erased. And if you can, I don't know if, let me make this bigger. Okay. Can you see like the solid circle and then the lighter circle outside my brush?
Yes.
That's my feathered edge. So I want to feather that so it blends a little over the edge. So I don't have to be, I never use a hard edged brush. I always used a little bit of a feather, and I paint in there, and I need to go back and erase. Okay. And that did fairly well, because I'm not going to make a huge adjustment to that, but you know, that was fairly clean. I see a little bit of a problem over there, so I'm going to go back to the A brush. It felt like there was an edge on there. Oh, what's it doing? I feel like something's not behaving.
That's the conversation I usually have every time I use Lightroom,
Something's not behaving.
pretty much.
I never get distressed about it, because, you know, I'm like, oh, I'm on, you know, in Photoshop, like, oh, I'm on the wrong layer. How did that happen? Let me undo that and go back. Okay. Because
Always
sometimes
got the reset button down in the bottom right-hand corner.
yeah, but that might reset a whole bunch of stuff. And I don't want
Everything
that to
you've done.
happen. Okay. It's going to reset all my other settings that are in here as well. So I don't want to do that, but you can do Command or Control Z, and it will step you back. The other thing you can do, if you've never looked at this, go over on your left-hand side and look at your history. And you can back up in your history as well. Okay. So if you're like, oh, wow, what did I just do? I don't know. Let me back up to where I was. So you can just like step back to, you know, like what happened there. Or the other fun thing, I don't like this mask. That's not what I want to do. I can just delete it. Poof, it's gone. And I can start over. So, you know, I'm now using that select sky and select subject quite often, because it is really very good. I'm just like looking for something else to use a different one on. All right, here we go. Let's go with that one. Ooh, it's a little close. Okay. My favorite, besides the brush, my favorite masks are the linear gradient. Okay, where I can pull it in from an edge and darken down edges. Okay, linear gradient, and I can pull that in, and I can angle it if I want, or just kind of pull it down. That's going to be a much tighter gradient. This is going to be a much more gradual gradient. And then I can darken that. I could add some more blue up there. So I do a lot of that on my edges and on my skies. If I have, you know, a whole side of the photo that's too light or too dark, I can bring that linear gradient in and lighten or darken that edge. That when I want to make this a little whiter, okay, or brighter, so it feels brighter. I want to make it a little more stormy looking. So that one is like, that's the linear gradients are my favorite ones that I use an awful lot. Okay. And they're really easy to use. I'm just like looking for something in this group.
That linear gradient with the exposure is a really useful way to fix a photograph shot with an on-camera flash that has a lot of drop off.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Or, you know, like this one. Let's just add it in here. Okay. Let's say I wanted to lighten this side because it was just like really a little too dark over there because of how the light was hitting in, even though that was just the natural light. Okay. I can just brighten up that side a bit, and then I can even pull it over once I start. And it doesn't have to be a lot. It's just kind of subtle. Okay. And it just lightens that, you know, it lightens an area up, which is really pretty handy. You can lighten or darken any kind of areas that you might want. I'm just like looking for something that I can work on. Let's go with this dude. Okay. Oh, this one already has linear gradients on it. So it's showing me, and this one I did not do in this version of Lightroom, but it did convert it over to this masking. And you can see how I masked that to darken the sky down a little bit. And I masked that bottom corner. And let me turn both of them off. Okay. It wasn't a lot, but that one darkened that corner. And that one darkened that upper corner just to bring you more into this subject. I'm going to turn both of those off. Let me add a new mask. Another one that's kind of fun, it takes a little getting used to, is the radial gradient. And hello. I want to invert this because although I selected that, I want it to act more as a spotlight and darken around him rather than lighten him. So I can do a radial gradient and then just darken around that subject. Okay. And I can move that around. What's it doing with feather? I felt that it was a lot of feathering going on there. It was a little too much. Okay. But the radial is kind of nice if you really just want to darken or lighten around something. Any other questions on masks? Masks are fabulous. Oh, let's try this on this one. Let's turn these all off. Okay. Create a new mask. Let's see if, I just want to see if it's going to work for us here. Select subject. Oh, that was pretty nice, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it's a lot smarter and faster than we are. I couldn't draw that mask that clean that fast. And that's really staying right on him.
Is there any way to blur the mask?
That one, this specific one, or not? Or another one?
No, this one.
Okay. What do you mean, like blur the edge of it or what?
Yeah, blur the edges, you know, like when you use the select sky, select hair, select subject, it gives you a very crisp edge.
Right.
If you would like to blur the edge.
At this time, I have not seen a way. That doesn't mean there isn't a way. I mean, the only other way to do it would be to actually come in and like subtract and probably take your brush and then erase some of it.
Right, but you know, very much like we used to do in Photoshop, take the mask and do a Gaussian blur of 2 pixels or whatever.
Yeah, at the moment, this one's not letting me do that. That's you can do a feathered edge on the brush.
Yes.
But I haven't seen, let's just try it again. Select subject. I don't see any place to add a feather edge on that. When it's doing kind of its artificial intelligence selecting. I'm not seeing any place to blur this mask itself.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Delete that one as well.
Judith, I think we can keep you here all night doing this stuff, but
That's okay. So thank you all for inviting me. Let me close. Hold on. I am stop share. There we go. All right, we're good.